Hey everyone, this is Adam with Brightengale, and today we're talking about the Canon N300, 500, and IP100. All right, so what do we have here? So we have the N300, the N500. These are two relatively new Canon PTZ cameras. They've been out a year or two, and they have a really similar feature set, and it's really, really great. So they've got all your standard, IP control, which you use their controller, SDI output, standard HDMI output, USB output, and an IP stream, all from the same camera. So that makes these cameras incredibly flexible. They also have SD card slots, which I'm pretty sure you can record to. I'll double check and we'll say on the screen whether I'm lying or not. But I'm pretty sure you can record directly to the micro SD card slot on the camera as well. Oh, and one last thing, they also have NDI built in. So if you are using maybe a software-based streaming solution, just use it, plug that one cable in, get NDI off the camera, and this could be a one cable solution camera for you. But anyway, what is the main difference between these two cameras? For the most part, they have a really, really similar feature set. The number one main difference is going to be sensor size. This has a 1/2.3 sensor, so it's a little under a ½ inch sensor. This has a 1-inch sensor. So what does that mean? So in general, the larger sensor size you have, you get a couple benefits from that. One is you tend to get better low light performance. So if you have a dimly lit situation, that's a little bit better. And two, you tend to have a little bit shallower depth of field. And so that means is I can be in focus and maybe my background is out of focus. But that's the main benefit. Another side benefit is because this has a small sensor, even though these are both 20 times zoom cameras, this one does zoom in a little bit further than this one. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to swap out this camera right here with both of these, and we'll look at both of them, see how they look, and then we'll also take these out into the field to an event, and we'll get some footage with each one of these cameras, and we'll splice it and see what it looks like. So I don't want to forget to talk about the controller. The RC-IP100 is a Canon controller. It works incredibly well with these cameras, as well as a few of their cine cameras. It's got a touch screen. It's got user-defined keys over here. So we've got 2 dials, 2 buttons, another dial here. We also have a PTZ joystick with a rotational dial here. That's all customizable. And you've got a touchscreen in the middle that allows you to easily recall presets. One of the features I really like about this is it has the trace function in it. So you can actually use the camera controller to pre-record a camera movement, and then it will recreate that camera movement for you over and over again as many times as you'd like. That's incredibly handy if there's a couple shots that you find yourself doing a lot. You don't have to get that perfect motion every time. Get it once, push the button, and recall it. Anyway, we'll take a deeper dive and look into what this does. All right, so let's talk about the basics of the controller. Like I mentioned, you've got 2 customizable dials, 2 buttons, your zoom rocker, your joystick, up, down, left, right. You can also twist, which you can assign whatever function you like to it, and you have an additional function dial here. Right in the center is your big touchscreen. And it's kind of broken up into 2 main sections. On the left side is going to give you camera functions. So you could choose white balance, and then whatever these are listed at corresponds to these buttons and dials. So as it sits here, this is going to be an auto white balance function, and this is going to be a gain knob. And then from there, you can go through your different sections. And if you don't want one of those, you do have the ability to tap here. And then there's a variety of controls you could choose from. So maybe we want to choose that, push enter, and now when we go back, this user function will be assigned to that position. So now we can see that is where that button is assigned. So that's kind of the left side of the touchscreen. The right side of the touchscreen is more like preset control, where you would do your traces, things like that. And so across the top, you've got view, store, delete, PT active. PT active is what enables your PT control, your pan tilt control. Camera presets are really simple. So right now we're in view mode. So this is going to be a preset recall page. So you just simply tap the button and the camera preset is triggered. If you want to store it, you go to the store tab, you move your camera to wherever you want it. And when you're pleased with that, you just choose a location and you push enter, and then that preset is stored. Also here, we can do a trace. So a trace is really great to do that pre-recorded motion. So what we can do is go to the store page, hit trace, choose 3, and now we're going to say start record, and then I'm going to be moving the camera with the joystick, and I say, okay, that's great. That's exactly the motion I want. Hit stop record, hit enter, and now we go back to view. And so instead of saying we want to recall a preset, we can recall a camera trace. So there's a camera trace we recorded before, and then here's our current camera trace. So that is super handy. There's also the setting menu. In the settings, this is where you do a lot of the controller settings itself. The main thing you're going to need is the network setting and your camera registration. And Canon has a great video on how to set this up, so I'm not going to repeat what they did. But the short of it is you go in, you enter the IP address of your camera, and load it in for as many cameras as you want. And this controller will store up to 100 cameras. So all in all, that is the PT100 camera controller. I think it's really, really handy. I think the layout is good. I think it's intuitive and easy to use. Let's look at the back panel. So on the back panel, it's pretty straightforward. You've got a power switch, the power port for your DC power supply, LAN. I wish this had PoE, but it doesn't. A USB service port, a tally port to connect your tally lights, some dip switch settings, which you can read in the manual what those are all for. For us, right out of the box was great. And the serial port if you're controlling a camera that doesn't have IP control. Other than that, pretty straightforward, great controller. Okay, let's check out the back of the 500. So you've got a lot of connectivity here. You've got your LAN port, your 422 port. So if you want to control it, if you have a different controller that doesn't support IP control, you can use that. Your power plug, if you don't have PoE, this camera does support PoE, so you can just plug it in with one cable. And if you're using an NDI, that one cable will give you power, control, and your video feed. You've got a USB port, which the manual says is for future service, a reset button, a micro SD. Like I said, I think you can record directly to that micro SD, but like I said, we'll put text in the video if I'm lying right now. HDMI out, SDI out, gen clock, if you've got a larger system and need synchronization. You've got 2 audio inputs, so you can have stereo audio in, as well as a mic line port if you want to ingest audio through the camera into your video system. So here's the 300, smaller camera, but a lot of the same ports. So you've got your network port, which is also PoE, so it'll power the camera, give you an NDI feed, and give you control. Once again, a 422 port if you have a different controller that doesn't support IP control. This USB-C port here, this allows you to plug this directly into a computer and it just pops up like a webcam. That's a great feature on this camera, I think. Once again, micro SD, future expansion USB, HDMI out, SDI out, and then over here we also have that mic line input. Other than that, I think it's a really good complement of connectivity for a camera. I mean, it has pretty much every single sort of connection you would need all in one. I really like that. All right, so this is the 300. This is its widest field of view. It looks good. It's set up right where our normal camera is. I would say it's about 10 to 12 feet away from me right now. So let's zoom it all the way in. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll back up. Here I am. There we go. All the way in the back. That's about 25 feet. All right, so this is the N500. It's in the same place as the other camera. This is 11 feet. I just measured it. And this is what it looks like. You can say it's a pretty wide shot. And I think the big part of that is the larger sensor and the glass is a little bit different. So I think it looks really good. I'll move to the back wall. That's 20 feet. And we'll see what that looks like. Whoa. All right. So right here, this is 20 feet away, and you can see, how tightly this is cropped. I think for most applications, that is plenty of zoom. Maybe for yours it is or isn't, but that's what it is. One thing I did notice while going back and forth between these two shots is the autofocus on this camera is really quick. So if I can stand here and I can start walking forward, make sure I get in the frame, and it's pretty quick autofocus that tracks well. Oh, there, bumped against the wall. But I don't know, I think it looks pretty good. So all these recordings of this camera are at 1080p. They are 4K cameras, but our switcher is limited to 1080p. I'll try to get some 4K footage of them and put a link below so you can see what it looks like that. But either way, I mean, if you're watching it on YouTube, which you are, it is going to be compressed. YouTube does support 4K. Our switcher just doesn't, unfortunately. But let me see what I can do about getting some 4K footage. But I think in a lot of applications, for a lot of people, streaming at 1080p is still a really good choice, if for no other reason than bandwidth and what the end viewer is watching on. Maybe cell phone, something like that. But yeah, I think these are really great cameras. And if you need help deciding if these cameras are right for you, or if there's another one that may fit you better, feel free to leave a comment below, give us a call, or shoot us an email. Thanks so much.